Welcome back everyone to more of our gameplay series of X4 Foundations. We're currently here at the player HQ in our own personal office. So not bad at all. It's got a nice look there. Bosata got a nice statue over here in the corner. Now as far as functionality, there is a storage over here which I don't really have much of a use for, but it does give you an opportunity to sit down at the computer and it instantly pulls up all of the screens that we use quite a bit anyway. So I've been trying to use this more and more in the last several hours that I've been in game, simply because it helps out with the frames per second. Anytime I'm outside, we've got a lot of activity around me, then it certainly is not helping our frames per second. And especially as we get later and later into the game, there are more ships, more stations, more fighting, more everything, and that is certainly something we're going to have to take into consideration. Now, in today's video, we're going to be talking about extra large ships. And yes, that includes the Erlking. But we're also going to be talking about a new ship that we have access to via a mod, and also why I downloaded and installed that particular mod. But first, I want to give you guys a few updates. It's been now several hours since our last video together, and the reason for that is I needed time in game. I have been very aggressive here lately, queuing up a lot of projects. We've got defense centers, we've got different stations for production and so on. We've built, of course, an extra large fabrication bay. So all of this takes time and it takes a lot of credits. We're finally getting to the point where our credits are starting to build up again. We're now back up near 260 million credits, and we're going to need all of those and then some, but we'll talk about that in just a moment. One of the biggest things that have occurred since we were last together is we have lost our two fleets protecting Hatikva's Choice 1. Now, these two fleets, which consisted of each fleet had a carrier and then 3 to 4 large ships, the Osakas in general, and then probably around 30 medium ships, and then around 20 to 30 fighters. But they had been there forever. I don't even know how many hours they had been over here protecting, but they have finally bit the dust. They are all gone, except for a few stragglers. I believe 1 medium ship and maybe 5 fighters are all that remain. So that was sad to see, but I can't really be disappointed in it because they lasted forever and killed no telling how many Xenon ships, not just the fighters, but of course, medium size, large size, the Zenks, you name it, they killed them all. So I'm very excited about all of the great work they did. We now have a new defense platform over here, and you can see it has been completed. Makes it very easy when you have that that nice shape there to tell when they are completed and when they're still being worked on. So we still got that, and of course we've got our initial defense station here and then our scrap station for recycling. So all of that is still going very strong, but we're going to have to put together something for that. But what I'm really excited about is it is now time. I am putting together our first fleet that is going to make the jump into Xenon space. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So how are we going to lead that? How are we going to anchor that particular fleet? Well, I've already started putting it together. All of the ships you see down here, we have a total of 10 Osakas that are here or on their way, one of the two. And then I don't even know how many medium ships. It's at least 50. Same thing with fighters, at least 50, and there might even be more than that. I was queuing up a lot from our Terran Wharf, and basically as many as we could print, I was printing them and sending them up here. So we have at least 50 medium, at least 50 fighters, and then I know we have 10 Osakas because I remember queuing those up, and I have to be a little bit more careful about queuing those up because they take a lot of resources, and I wanted to make sure that we left plenty for what we're going to be doing here shortly. And that is bringing us back to the extra large ships. All right, so let's go ahead and get rid of the object list there because we won't need that. So one thing I'm going to be doing first and foremost is we're going to be anchoring this fleet with, you guessed it, an extra large ship, the Erlking. Now, I mentioned before that once we got the Erlking, that there was a mod I had that would allow us to not have to essentially blanket about 5 sectors with different satellites so that we could find the lockboxes that held the blueprints for things like the engine, the turrets, whatever the case might be. I didn't want to go through all that. For those of you who did, congratulations to you for going through that. Hopefully you didn't have to spend too much time, but I had no interest in doing that. So for the purposes of my own sanity, we have a mod, and I'm going to show you exactly what this mod did. So as soon as you capture the Erlking, it adds in this particular research. So I've already done this particular research. It just takes a lot of materials. All the basic materials that you would normally build a ship out of, excluding the Terran production, of course. So you got things like hull parts and energy cells, all those types of things. Claytronics, you get the idea. But what I wasn't expecting was, as soon as we got done with that, finishing up this research grants you access to all of the blueprints to mass produce the Erlking, just as the name would suggest. And that's where I expected it to end. What I did not expect is that there were going to be upgrades specific to the Erlking in here. I don't know what the upgrades are, other than obviously the different categories that they're going to apply to. So I don't know how strong these are, but let's take a quick look at the weapon upgrades, which is the first one I decided to queue up. You can see all of the materials we need here. Obviously, energy cells, because we have a dedicated station for that, is not going to be an issue for us. But these others, we have managed to accumulate, except for weapons components. So as soon as we can get enough of those, I believe our current balance of 5.8 million credits should be sufficient for that, plus get us started on some of these other upgrades. But we'll see where it goes with that. So I'm going to make an Erlking. That is going to be the anchor, and we're also going to add another extra large ship that we'll look at here in just a moment. But before we do that, I want to actually queue up the Erlking. Let's actually head over to our shipyard, and I want to show you guys something I did on the shipyard and did not even realize I had done it. So when I was building the shipyard, I generally look at it from this particular angle, somewhere up top. And you'll see why that turned out to be not such a great idea as I turn it to the side. When I placed some of these expansion production modules, I did not realize I put them upside down. It was not on purpose, and I didn't even realize I did it until the station was already built. And I was trying, and the reason I even found it out at all is because I was trying to place the fabrication bay, and I wanted to put it right in the middle, just underneath here, and I realized it just would not fit unless I took the additional components, additional structures all the way down. And I thought, why on earth are we having to do that? And that's when I discovered that, oh, I might have done that accidentally. So yeah, moral of the story is, whenever you are building, you might want to take a look at some different angles instead of doing what I did, which was hastily adding new components to the factory. But either way, it might not look great, but it is very much functional. All right, so let's hop out of that and let's take a look at building a ship. So here's what we get access to by using that mod. So we get the extra large ship. Now we can't build the Erlking. The original Erlking is only one. And of course, it wants us to do some research. That's where we get into trying to find lockboxes with blueprints. Not interested in that, but what it essentially does is it clones the Erlking, names it Erlking 2, so that we can now start to build it. All right, so here's what it looks like. And this is pretty awesome. I mean, this is definitely an extra large ship. And of course, the whole 500,000. That is by far and away the most I've seen, by about double. So at least double. But yeah, you can see it's got tons of room for turrets on here, shields, you name it. It's got tons of room. So let's go ahead and build one. I don't have a loadout for it yet. I wanted to do that together with you guys. But you can already get a pretty good idea. You see some large turret slots. We got shields. We got everything here. So you guys might remember, I believe it was in the last video, or it might have been 2 videos ago, where I was purchasing blueprints for extra large ships. The reason I was doing that is because I didn't really realize everything that we were going to get access to. And I had a plan just in case. So turns out the Erlking gives us blueprints for everything. So we really didn't need those, but I found a way to put those to use anyway. And we'll get to that when we talk about the second extra large ship that we're going to have available, again, through a mod. So what I'm going to do for this build is I'm going to select everything Erlking that we can so that we can get an idea of just what this thing looks like by default. So we're going to use the Erlking engine, and you can see immediately 355 meters per second. That is huge. That is way faster than anything I was expecting for an extra large ship. So that is amazing. So all acceleration, boost, you name it, it's all amazing. I love it. To give you an idea, if we do the all-around that we purchased, the Terran model, yeah, we cut all of those in half or more, just depending. But this is huge. I mean, look at that travel speed, 11,707. Are you kidding me? That is monstrous. Could you imagine if we just had a fleet of these things traveling from place to place? I mean, you're traveling 355 meters per second, just normal. And then the travel speed, we could be anywhere we wanted very quickly. So, obviously, we're going to use the Erlking engine. And by the way, keep in mind, this is before any upgrades. I have no idea what the upgrades are going to do. But we're going to be finding out at some point when we get done with the research. Also, shields. We don't have any shields for the Erlking. So this is why it's very good that I have purchased the Mark III for the medium shield. So let's go ahead and put that on here. Now keep in mind, that's not the main shield. That's just for the engines. So not bad. We'll take it. Then we get to the thrusters. We only have one set of thrusters here, the all-around Mark II versions. We'll take that. Then we get to the shield. So we've got the Terran Mark II shield that I purchased, and then the Erlking. Or excuse me, the Erlking. I keep wanting to say Erlking on this thing. So we'll start with the Erlking shield, 158,600. But how does that compare to the Terran version of the extra large? And you can see they're nearly identical here. We're at almost 162,000 versus 158,600. Now, for the purposes of this, I'm going to go ahead and just use the Erlking shield. Okay, they're so close, but for right now, I'm just going to purchase the Erlking shield, and that's going to give us a huge amount of hull. The shield could be better. Let's be real. We could have multiple of these shields on there, and that would make me feel better. But it's hard to complain when you have a ship like this. So again, we're going to keep it at everything Erlking that we can. Now we get to the weapon. And this is where I'm going to zoom out a little bit, because I want you guys to see this at scale. So when I add this weapon, look how big that is. That is absolutely monstrous at how far that sticks out. I mean, take that off. I mean, I feel like it doubles the length of the ship. It might actually do that just by eyeballing that. I mean, that is huge. And then, of course, let's take this away. And I want you to look at the weapon output down here at the bottom. 4,800 versus almost 4,000 for the sustained output. So, yeah, that's big time. But, of course, we're not done because we haven't added any turrets yet. So first, let me make sure. Let's summarize. We've got the Erlking engine, 3 of those, of course, and those are back here in the very back. You can see 1, 2, 3. Okay, we've got our shields, our Mark III shields from Terran. We've got the all-around Mark II versions. Our shield, we're using only one of those, sadly. I wish it had multiple of these in there. I'm just getting greedy now. With so much hull, I wanted to have equal amount shield. So then we get to the weapon. Only room for one weapon. I mean, my goodness. And what a weapon it is. Now we get to the turrets. We have 5 large turret slots. And then we have 5 medium turret slots. Woo! Now, I was excited because I thought, hey, we're going to get to put on some things, some different things in here like plasma and maybe pulse and all that kind of thing, but it has its own turrets. And I have no idea how these turrets fire. I don't know what they do. But I guess we're going to have to find out the hard way. So here, once again, you can see we're using the medium shields. And so we're going to use those Terran shields. All right, once again, the Erlking turret, Mark III Terran. And we're just going to keep doing that. And for those of you interested, you can just keep looking at the turret output down here at the bottom as it changes to get an idea of how that is changing each time we add a new one there. There you go, 1,733 just from the large turrets. So not bad at all. Medium turrets, what do we have? Well, the Erlking turret is here for the medium turrets, but that has me a little bit concerned. And the reason is because it's an Argon model. And remember, we are making all of our own Terran products. So that has me a little bit concerned, but we're going with it. So it's got room for 3 of these in this slot. And once again, Terran Mark III. So we're going to do the same thing here. So everything is Erlking that can be. So as far as its capabilities in battle, I have no idea. I have not seen this thing because obviously it shot a little bit when we were trying to board it, but I mean, that wasn't going to be a full-scale test. It only had 3 turrets at that particular time. And I'm not sure it had any shielding at all. No, I take that back. It did have shield. I remember now. It did have some shields that were very tough. How could I forget that? But now, I mean, just take a look. We had only 5 medium slots, but keep in mind, slot number 5 has 5 turrets. Slot 4 has 3, and then we get 3 again, 3, and 3. So that's a lot of turrets. And it was only shooting 3 of those when we boarded it. So now we've got everything we need. Just double checking here to make sure we've got it. Okay, looks good. Let's move on to the software. Not going to put any docking software on there. I wouldn't even want to pretend like I was going to fly this thing in any capable manner. So we've got our software there. I always give the bigger ships at least the police scanner, just in case we decide to actually do some police work in the sectors that we control. And you guys might have noticed we have an additional sector that we control, and we'll take a look at that here again in just a moment for anyone who might have missed it. Okay, so then the consumables. All I really care about right here for our purposes are the repair drones. Obviously, all of these things like the laser towers, the Mark II, mines, and so forth are really good and certainly would be incredibly helpful, flares and so forth. But we're not going to do any of that. We are simply going to live and die based on our turrets and our weapons. But just in case you were wondering, there's room for 450 on board here. So it is no small feat to try to pack this thing full of anything you're interested in carrying. But then we get to the crew. Now we already know how many crew it can hold because, well, we had to deal with that when we were boarding it. In this case, I'm going to use entirely service crew. Now the reason why I'm going to do that is Marines are only good for boarding. And we've already boarded the one and only ship that I ever plan on boarding in this playthrough. So the service crew will be the only useful crew aboard this ship, and they will really be helpful in battle because as they gain experience, they will make our weapons perform better, and when we need to make repairs, they will make those even quicker as they level up and gain experience. So what I really want to focus on is getting our service crew top notch so that we can perform in battle the way we need to perform in battle. Because when we go after the Xenon in their own territory, I have no idea what to expect, but I can't imagine they're going to go down lightly. All right, so we're going to do 328. Now, it says there's not enough workforce on the station. We'll deal with that when the time comes, if it becomes an issue. We can always go to another station and pick up some more crew. That's not a problem. All right, so our settings. Now, this is where I've played around with a lot of different settings, and what I think I'm going to use moving forward is what we're going to do right now. So all of the medium turrets, I'm going to have those attack all enemies. So let's just go ahead and do those first. Because essentially, I want to make sure that we are always firing upon any enemies that might be around us. Okay, the last thing I want to do is just leave them on defend and have things circling us that we're not attacking. Okay, so I believe that's all of the mediums, if I'm looking at this right. So the large turrets, so let's see, where is this one? This is L1. So let's go find out where L1 is. I believe it's that one. The colors are all blending together. Yeah, okay, so it's that one, and I believe 2 is on the other side, I'm assuming. Yeah, right there. 3 is right back there. 4 must also be back there somewhere, and then I believe this is going to be 5. Yeah, that one's 5. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, not too bad. All right. So what I want to do with these is I want these to attack my current enemy on the first 2. Okay, and the reason I did that is because we got one on either side. And so I figured wherever we're at, if it's in front of us, then great. We'll be using our main weapon, we'll be using the turrets, and if we happen to be to one side of it, if it's flanking us somehow, we'll always have one of these large turrets to go after it. Now the others, the rest of these, I'm going to put on attack all enemies. All right, so I mixed it up a little bit, but this should have essentially maximum coverage for us for the most part, except for these 2 right here. Now, why did I do that? Why didn't I just do attack all enemies? I could have, and it probably would have worked the same or better. Who knows? All right. Let's go ahead and name that. What else would we name it? So that way, as many as we want to produce and we can get materials for, we'll be in good shape. Now, notice here what we've got. Engine parts, 215. Weapons components, 300. Let's see if that changes. Because remember, I want to keep this self-sufficient, this station, as much as I can. Weapon components, I don't know that I've got any choice there because, well, it's this or nothing. Okay, yep, that's it. So the weapon components are for the main weapon. And the turret groups are going to be just fine. So, interesting that they're not using anything else. But of course, the engine parts, I'm sure we could get rid of that by going up here and doing this. Yep, we could. But we're going to use the Erlking engine. I mean, we might as well. It is so much better, twice as good. So, yeah, I'm fine with that. Let's go ahead and add to our shopping list. I'm going to only do... Let's see. Ooh, look at those hull parts right there. Yikes. Okay, the good news is we only need 1. But we're going to be using hull parts. Some things that I really didn't want to get into, but hey, for the Erlking, we'll make it happen. All right, so now production will begin as soon as we have everything we need. But let's see, weapon components. Yeah, we're going to need to stock up on those for sure. In fact, I'm going to have to make a note right here because, again, this isn't something we've been using. So I'm going to have to set up a trader to make sure we have a steady supply of these coming in instead of just like right now whenever we need them. Okay, engine parts. You can see we've got that set up. I'm going to set up a trader or 2 for that matter, just specifically for these 2. Now that I know which additional resources we're going to need. Now, hull parts, I already opened that up and you can see we've got tons and tons of those. So we're good there. I think we're good otherwise. Now, let's talk for a moment. Before we get to our other extra large ship, let's talk for a moment about ore and silicone. So in the name of frames per second, I have changed up our production of those a little bit. So what I have done is it's a mod that I really enjoy using for just this purpose. We have an ore mine and a silicone mine. And essentially what this is, and for those of you who might not have seen this before, what you get is it's a mining station mod. And it looks just like the Player HQ because that's the model it's using. And the idea is that you are mining this huge asteroid in the middle. It takes a lot to make this thing. So it's not something you're going to make at the very beginning of a game unless you get one of the smaller models. But this thing is a beast once you get it up and running. So it's more of a mid to late game item. And for me, it simply allows me to have the station going, and then I simply have some traders that will come pick the storage up, pick up whether it's ore or silicone, and take it over to our large ship station. All right, and then it's that simple. Rather than these guys having to find somewhere to mine, you still see we do have some miners left. I have not moved all of them off of mining, but this makes things so much easier, and I cannot imagine that it's going to be any harder on the CPU. So it should save a lot of frames per second in the long run. So we've got those two up and running. Those are the only two we have right now. But while we're here, you can see that we now control this particular area. Not that that's a huge deal because once again, we've got Hatikva League over here. We've got SCA. Yeah, I was going to say, I believe they have a few places over here. So it's not a huge deal, but I did build a defense station over here so we could go ahead and turn this bad boy bright green. So that's what has been going on. Now let's talk about the last piece of today's video. And for that, we need to come over to the Argon shipyard. So at first, once we captured the Erlking, the research that was supposed to be popping up and all of that wasn't happening the way I thought it should, and I couldn't figure out why it wasn't. So as a backup plan, I decided we need an extra large vessel that is actually a fighter because the carriers are not fighters. They do have turrets on them, but they don't have any other weapons. They don't have any main weapons, and the turrets they have are pretty lackluster for a ship of that size. So it's definitely not the force in battle that I believe it should be as an extra large ship. So I found an extra large ship that is a force in battle. And that's what we're going to take a look at now. All right, so if we come in under extra large, it is the Leviathan, and this is what it looks like. That should look very familiar to you because it is a design very frequently used by Argon. But again, remember, this is a mod. So the hull and the shield, let's go ahead and take a look. I've already done a loadout so that we could very quickly look through the cost as well as the components. Let's start with the cost. 42.3 million credits. So yeah, we can build some, but we got to be careful about building these, and we're probably going to run this poor shipyard out of materials pretty quick. So the hull and the shield should look familiar. That's the same as what we have with the carrier, assuming you're talking about the Argon version and not the other version that you can get in game. So the Argon version, this is identical. The difference comes in the weapon layout. So let's actually take a look down through the basics here. So we are going to use the all-around Mark 1, Mark 2 Argon shields. Now, keep in mind, we're not actually going to be paying this because I'm going to save up and buy the blueprint. The blueprint, though, about 290 million credits. So yeah, it's going to take a lot, but I want to build these on our own because why not? That's what we're doing with everything else, and we might build a few here and there with Argon, but I want to get our own shields on here, the Terran shields and so forth. That's what I want to use. So here, Mark II, the all-around, we've got 3 extra large shields. That's how you get 388,000. And remember, these are Argon shields. They're not Terran shields. Weapons, it has 6 batteries on the front of this thing. This is monstrous. 3 on each side. And honestly, that doesn't look like too many when you see the size of the main battery versus the size of this ship. So it's got some serious firepower just on the weapons. Then you move into the turrets. Yeah, we got a lot of those too. 8 large slots. Now for me, I think I put most of these as either plasma or the pulse, I believe is what I was doing on this when I made the loadout. And then for the medium, you're going to see a lot of flak for the medium, and there might be a few bolt and pulse. A lot of flak, a lot of pulse, a few bolts mixed in there as well. But this thing has serious firepower. But of course, that's the trade-off for number one, money. And number two, the fact that it doesn't have near the hull, has less than half the hull of the Erlking. So there is a trade-off there, but this thing is a beast, no doubt. It is vicious. So if we finish out the loadout, you can see here what we have for the software, pretty standard there for me. We have the repair drones that I love to have on board because, hey, the quicker we can get this sucker repaired, the quicker we can continue the fight. Nothing else as far as the consumables down here, or deployables for that matter. And then crew, only 150 here. You get a little spoiled looking at that Erlking number, but only 150 crew, once again, all service crew for the reasons we've talked about. And here, I just left everything at attack all enemies. The reason I did that is because this thing has 6 weapons on it that are going to wreak havoc. So I felt like we could free up all the rest of these turrets to just attack everything else. But this thing is a beast. So I plan on having one of these to go with our Xenon attack crew that we are putting together. But right now, I mean, this thing is just awesome. In fact, let's just go ahead and queue one up. You want to? Why not? All right, it's not giving me any messages. We only need the one. I mean, we want more, but that'll put us down to 200 million. Go ahead and confirm that order. Y'all get started building it. Like, as soon as possible. Please. So, that's a lot. I threw a lot at you today, and it's because a lot of time has passed since we were last together. A lot of updates that I needed to get through and talk to you guys about our overall plan. So now we have a Leviathan being built over here. At least I don't see it, so hopefully it's being built over there. I'll have to keep an eye on that. We've got an Erlking being built over here. Do I see it? I do not. So we'll have to look at that. Oh, that's right. We're waiting on some items for that, some components. Okay, I'd forgotten about that. I got too excited. And then right over here, you can see an absolute ton, at least 100 to 110 medium and small ships, plus our 10 Osaka. So we have a formidable group that is going to be headed into Tharkus Cascade 15. That is what I'm planning on doing when we're together next time. So for today, thank you guys once again so very much. It is greatly appreciated, all the support you guys give me here on the channel. Hope you guys are enjoying X4 as much as I am.